but they only come just to critique or be nosy or just to talk about, what's wrong with everything, knowing that it's off the chain, y'all. Knowing that you done lay it out. Hey y'all, and welcome to the No Rules, Just Vibes podcast. I'm your host, Maya Angel, and this is where we get real honest. Join me each week as I share my thoughts and have conversations about a variety of topics, from relationships, work, faith, to culture. This is a safe space for us to vibe out, think out loud, and share perspectives. No judgment, more laughs, and just a little bit of shade. Thanks so much for tuning in to the No Rules, Just Vibes podcast, and I hope you guys enjoy the show. What's up, y'all, and welcome back to No Rules, Just Vibes. I'm your host, Maya Angel, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to get into somewhat of a sensitive topic, in my opinion, but I think it's a very fun topic, and it's an opportunity to reflect. Y'all know I love to reflect, so we're going to talk about friendship red flags. And I think a lot of the times when we talk about red flags, we do it in the context of romantic relationships where we're trying to figure out, okay, should I get more involved in this relationship? Should I let this relationship go? But we rarely ever talk about it in the context of friendships. So I want to get into it. I want to keep it 100% raw, real, honest. And I want to talk about all of the red flags from both sides because I think, like I said, I think this is a good opportunity to reflect on what kind of friends we are, what kind of friends we've been. Are there some friendships that we may need to call it quits, or, we're just in different seasons with our friends right now. So let's get into it. And with that being said, I think it makes more sense to start off with the most obvious red flag. Well, this is the one that I think is the most obvious, and that is, of course, jealousy. Jealousy, and I'll even throw in unnecessary competition, because I think that under no circumstances can you be friends with someone who secretly wants your life. You just can't. You can't do it, and y'all know what I'm talking about. These are these people that, if you go by a house, they come scope out your house, and then they want to go buy a bigger house. Now their house is not even old, and you just celebrated them for their house, but because you have a nicer house, they want to go get another house, but it has to be bigger than yours. Or if you're doing this at this point in your career, you have they want to go do the same thing, and then their whole focus is just surpassing you or just showing you that they've done better. Those are the type of red flags that I think that you need to watch out for. You can't trust people like that. And then you have people that little unnecessary competition, or when you say you're throwing a party or you're doing something and they come or they show up, but they only come just to critique or be nosy or just to talk about, what's wrong with everything, knowing that it's off the chain, y'all. Knowing that you done lay it out. But to them, they're just they can't handle it. So they're jealous, and they just look at it like, it's through a lens of hate, instead of it being like constructive criticism, because I think sometimes you can have friends that will give you constructive criticism, and you should receive it as constructive criticism. However, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those people that literally just cannot, they can't stand it. Like, no matter what it is, they just can't stand it. And their life is centered around, or just the entire friendship is centered around, how can they outperform you? How can they accomplish you? How can they spin you? Or how can they whatever it is that you're doing, how can they do it more or do it at a higher level than you? I think those type of friends are friends you need to watch out for. And on the flip side, I don't think you can be friends with somebody that you're jealous of. I do not think that you can be friends with somebody that you're jealous of. I think, I feel the same way that I feel about someone being friends with someone who secretly wants your life, it's the exact same thing. You can't be friends, genuine friends, with someone that you're jealous of. And I think sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves, because jealousy is a human reaction. It's normal. I think a lot of the times there's a negative connotation that comes with jealousy, and that's not necessarily true. I think everybody, well, I know everybody has been jealous in their life at one point. If you say you haven't, you're lying. You have been jealous of something or someone at one point in your life. However, the issue becomes when you haven't done the emotional work, or you just haven't done, you don't have enough security in yourself to not let that jealousy settle, or I don't even know the word that I'm looking for, but you haven't done what you need to do to overcome it or check it as soon as those type of emotions arise. So you just kind of waddled in the jealousy, or it's prolonged. That's what I'm talking about. That's different, because I think everybody has that initial reaction of comparison and jealousy and competitiveness. I don't think anything is wrong with that. I have 2 siblings and they're competitive. You know, we're competitive with each other, but it's a healthy competitiveness. You know, it's a different thing when, you know, you're motivating me, you doing well is motivating me, and I'm looking at what you're doing from an encouraging standpoint and saying that, oh my gosh, she's doing that or he's doing that, then, you know, I know if they're able to do that, then I can do this too. That, you know, I think that's healthy. So, but the problem becomes is when you look at that person and you say, you know, they're doing this, why do they get to do this? Or I'm going to do this and show them that I can do this better than they did it. You know, that's when it kind of crosses the line. So I think that's probably the most obvious one. Jealousy and unnecessary competition. Definitely a huge red flag, and something that you need to worry, I guess not necessarily worry about, but something that you need to pay attention to and recognize when you're in a friendship, or when you're deciding whether to start a new friendship. Definitely pay attention to it. It will save you in the long run. And there are also extreme things to this. If you watch Lifetime, then you know people die behind jealousy. You know, I hate to be that extreme with it, but it is true. It can be toxic and it can be very dangerous. So I know we're just kind of talking and laughing, things like that, but in all seriousness, you really can't be friends with someone who secretly wants your life or that you're jealous of, because it can turn into envy. You know, jealousy can cross that point and turn into envy, and a lot of the time envy carries a component of violence, you know, with it. So it's not necessarily just an emotion. A lot of the times when we've reached the point of envy, violence and some type of action is usually connected to that. So you definitely want to be careful. But that being said, I think this kind of segues into like the next red flag, which is, you know, those friends who are always MIA in celebratory moments. So, you know, I think we've all experienced this, and it could be from jealousy, I don't know, or it just could be them not caring about the big moments in your life. I hope that's not the case. I hope you're not friends with someone like that, but I think you have to pay attention to, you know, those friends who are never around when you're celebrating a huge life moment, whether it's a baby shower, graduation, new job, a business grand opening, anything, engagement. You know, if you always have a friend that's missing at a big moment in your life, you need to pay attention to that. You know, I think it's important that you observe that and understand, especially if you're always showing up for them. That's the thing. So if because you can't really get upset if they're never coming to anything to celebrate you, but you're also not coming to anything to celebrate them. You know, it's a two-way street. So if you're never going to, you know, their big life moments or life events, then you can't really expect them to come to yours. So this is really if you know you're showing up for your friend. If you're showing up for your friend at every major life event or just life change or pivotal moment in their life that's good for them, but they're never doing the same thing for you, then that is definitely, I would consider that a red flag. And because in my opinion, a lot of the times it stems from jealousy. I would think no one is ever that busy to where, you know, they can't show up for somebody else's celebratory moments in their lives, especially if you're friends, and especially if I'm showing up for you, I'm gonna want you to show up for me too. So that's definitely gonna be a red flag for me. And I think this kind of goes into the next one. On the flip side, those friends who only show up when, you know, you're going through it. You know, though, and I call this the gloating in your downfall friends. You have to be wary of those. That's important too. And we see this all the time. You definitely have those friends to where they can only be your friend when you're down and out. You know, everything is fine when you're struggling. You know, we're best friends as long as I'm struggling or I'm going through it, or, you know, I can't catch a break, or life is whooping me from A to Z, and you know, nothing is going in my favor, nothing is going right, all hell is breaking loose. You know, we're only friends then. But as soon as I glow up, you know, lose a little weight, skin get clear, hair growing, you know, I got a new boo, he's treating me right, my business is taking off, I'm leveling up in my career, I've gotten a promotion, I'm making more money now, I'm able to pay for things now. I think if you know, now we can't be friends. You know, now it's we're having issues or there's tension in our relationships. That is a red flag, y'all. You do not want to be friends with someone who can only be around you when you're in need, or when you're struggling, or when you're going through it. And we know people like this. I know I'm not lying. We know people like this. You know, we can only be friends when I'm suffering because, or when I'm struggling because, as long as I'm struggling, that's stroking your ego. That's a red flag, y'all. Don't, you know, pay attention to that. You have to pay attention to that. I see it all the time. As long as I was, you know, I was insecure about myself for whatever reason, or, you know, I just didn't have the confidence that I needed, or I just wasn't getting the opportunities, or I was, you know, my business was not well known, not taking off, nobody knew about it, it was very local, you know, we were friends. But as soon as I blew up or glowed up, then now we can't be friends anymore. And on the flip side, y'all know I like playing devil's advocate. I'm an attorney by nature, so I love seeing both sides. You know, you have to be careful that you're not the friend that, you know, you're a good friend, not to necessarily say when you're struggling, but you kind of forget where you come from when you do glow up. You know, we can't forget that. You know, you're a friend, you were a friend to me, but as soon as you did lose weight, you know, hair grew, skin got clear, business took off, career leveled up, you found a boo, now you started acting different. You know, so we have to be fair. We have to be fair. You know, what kind of friend have you been? You know, what side of that have you been on? You know, because I do think that sometimes we kind of forget where we come from, or we're not as humble as we used to be. And, you know, we're the reason why, you know, after we've made it or after things start going good for us, then we forget our friends and we start hanging out with a whole new different group of people, you know, and those people don't even care about you. But because now you've done some things and you may now all of a sudden have access to different things that you didn't necessarily used to have access to, you forget about the people that stuck it out with you through the struggle. So I think we have to see both sides, you know. So that's definitely, I think those are definitely some red flags that we need to pay attention to. And I guess another one is those friendships where it's always give, 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 and you know, they're taking. You're always giving and they're taking. You know, every time they call you, it ends in you giving them something. That's a red flag. That's what you call being used. You have to be careful because there's no limit on how much people will take. You have to limit the amount that you're willing to give. So that goes for relationships, friendships, work relationships, associates, whatever the case may be, volunteer work. There's never going to be a limit on how much people will take. If you allow them to take, they're going to take. No matter how much you've already given them, you have to limit the amount that you're willing to give. So when it comes to friendships, you have to pay attention to that. You have to recognize that and see, okay, if I'm always having to pay, I'm always having to drive, I'm always having to, whatever the case may be, whatever the situation is that requires you to repeatedly give, and you're never getting that same energy back, and the person is just always taking, or they only call you for something. You know, they only call you when they need something. That I would consider that a red flag. I do. And I think on the flip side of that, you do have some people that like being the dependable friend. You know, you have some people that have the savior complex. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think you do have some people that like being the go-to person when someone needs something. You know, I think sometimes that can be an ego stroke for people as well. You know, say something in the family happens, or say something amongst friends happens, and God forbid, one of the friends out of the group gets locked up and has to go, nothing serious, but just has to go to jail, and they need bail money. And say, you know how we do, we don't really like people in our business, so we don't tell our family, so we call our friends. And you're the only person out of the friend group that has the money to do it. You know? And you've always been that person. You've always been the friend that comes through for everybody. Some people enjoy that. However, I think that can be draining. That can be draining. And the first time that you aren't able to give is going to be detrimental. So I think it's important for you to recognize those relationships for what they are. And know that, okay, I'm just a resource for these people. You know, and once you kind of, if that's what you are, and that's what you are fine with being, then I think you can have a little bit more emotional control over what you're expecting out of the relationship, and so that you don't necessarily feel like you're being used. Because like I said, some people like that. I've met people that like being the go-to person out of friendships. I have. But I also have met people that, will use. They're users by nature. You just have those type of people. Sometimes it may be out of a survival instinct. It may just be because they're opportunistic and they see what they can get out of you. You just have to be careful. And all I'm saying is just be observant enough to recognize what's going on in the friendship. That's all I'm saying is recognize the red flag. If you're somewhere where you're in a friendship and all it is you giving, and it's one-sided, and they're just taking, and that energy is not being reciprocated, then I definitely think you need to recognize that. That's especially for me. I'll speak for me. That is definitely a red flag. And with that being said, I think that kind of segues into something that I think is a more subtle red flag, but I still think it's a red flag, is one-sided transparency in friendships. And I see this a lot, especially with people that are somewhat private. I think it can happen unconsciously, but I think you still need to be aware of it, because and a lot of the times it happens in conversations. When you are friends with someone, or you're trying to grow into a friendship with someone, and you're realizing that you're always the one that's sharing information, or you're always the one that's being transparent about something, and they're not returning the same energy, that's somewhat of a red flag. And not necessarily that you should end the relationship or you shouldn't trust them, but maybe you just might need to pull back on some of the information that you're sharing and not necessarily be as transparent or just match the energy or match the level of transparency that they're giving you. That's all I'm saying, because I've seen, friendships where, I'm sharing every time something comes in my life, or, I'm having a issue and I need some advice with my relationship. And so I go to my friend and, she gives me advice, but then I hear about her relationships and the stuff that she went through 6 months later, after she's gone through it and gotten over it. Then I hear I hear about, the things that she was going through, and that's fine. Nobody's obligated to tell anybody anything or share their personal life or just vulnerable moments with you. They're not required to do that. However, in my mind, if that happens to me, the first thing I'm going to think about, okay, obviously we aren't where I thought we were. You aren't as comfortable with me as I am with you. You don't trust me the same way I trust you. However, y'all know I gotta do it. You do have those people that will share information as bait just to get information out of you, because I hate to say it, but sometimes it is true. Misery does love company. So because I want to make sure that your marriage is not, all perfect and everything like that, I'm going to share with you the struggles that are going on in my marriage, hoping, to bait you into sharing, the struggles and the ups and downs that you and your husband are going through, or you and your wife are going through. You do have those people. It's kind of sick, but I think it's important to recognize that you do have those people that, in order to bait information from you or to, just kind of kill that perspective or that idea in their head that, she can't be perfect or he can't be perfect. They have to be going through something. So let me share information with them to kind of show that, this is a safe space, hoping to bait information from that person to see, what's really going on. You have to be careful. It can go both ways. But I think a lot of the times when you have one-sided transparency in friendships, I think you just have to look at it and just kind of pay attention to it. And if you're seeing a pattern of, they know way more about me than I know about them, that's a red flag. And maybe, like I said, I don't think it's in the relationship, in the friendship. I don't think it's like in the entire friendship red flag. However, I do think it is okay, let me pull back, or let me be a little bit more careful about how much I share, or what I share. If that person shares with me about work, but they don't ever share with me about finances, but I'm always sharing with them about finances, let me pull back about sharing about finances and just, share with them. We both just share about work. That's all I'm saying. Just pay more attention to it and be a little bit more intentional in recognizing, just some of these things when you're in friendships with people. And while we're talking about red flags, I think it's also important to talk about how to reciprocate, energy in a friendship when the energy given to you might not necessarily be your love language. Because I do think you can have love languages in friendships the same way you can have them in romantic relationships. I think the context is a little bit different, but I think the overall idea still applies. So, for instance, if my love language is acts of service or either just acts of gifts, either one, or just, whatever. Let's go with acts of service. I'm sorry, y'all. If my love language is acts of service and I'm always doing something or serving my friends in whatever capacity they need to be served, but my friend's love language is not acts of service. If I'm not careful, I could think that, I'm being used. Or like I said, like we talked about earlier, I'm giving more than I'm receiving, or the energy is not being reciprocated, How, that I could feel that way. But, say that friend's love language is not acts of service. What if their love language is words of affirmation? There could be a disconnect there, and it could be misinterpreted just because you guys share a completely different love language. So how do you reciprocate that energy? And I don't necessarily know if there's an answer to that, but the way I think about it, I think that if you have that conversation, I think you can be a little bit more transparent about it. And I know we don't really talk about, love languages with our friends. That's not tea. That's not nothing we can kiki about. That's not something that that's not a typical friendship conversation. However, it may not necessarily be a conversation where you explicitly say, this is my love language and this is what I do. But I think if you're noticing that you're feeling a certain way or that you're feeling used, I think it's okay to have that conversation with your friend and say, hey, this is the way I feel about this, and I know you probably don't mean it, but I want to make sure we're on the same page. And sometimes that's all it takes. But I think you just have to be transparent about things, and I think you also have to show people grace. Everybody's not necessarily out to get you, and I know we're talking about red flags, and you have to pay attention to these things. However, I think you also have to show people grace, because people show their people are friends in different ways. I guess I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I may be a friend to you in a much different way that you are a friend to me. And a lot of times that may be while we work as friends. You never know. But I do think that, you should show people grace. Don't end the relationship if I didn't make it to John's birthday party. Don't do that. Maybe something came up. Maybe I didn't have anything to do, And what we also have to be careful not to do is be silent and let things boil and the tension rise, and we haven't really discussed it. Now I don't even know why you're mad, and you're mad because I didn't come to John's party a year ago, and I had no idea you felt some type of way about it. But now that has spoiled over into something else completely, and now the stakes have risen, and it's blown out of proportion, and it's something bigger than it should have been had we just had the conversation. So you have to communicate, just like you do in relationships. I think you also have to communicate in your friendships. But on the flip side of that, I think even though something may not necessarily be your love language in friendships, I think you also have to be willing to compromise. Because I know me. I can speak from myself personally. I am not necessarily a talk on the phone person. I'm not. I have a million things going on, and a lot of the times it takes a little bit more energy out of my day or just out of what I'm doing to call one of my friends. Now, if one of my friends call me, and all of my friends know this, if they call me, they know we are going to talk on the phone for hours, or if they say, hey, let's go out, or let's go to dinner or brunch or whatever, I'm coming. No questions asked, because I'm more of a quality time person. But I have noticed, and even though all of my friends are great about this and they don't care, and they will harass me and tell me, girl, pick up the phone, I do have to realize that they're still human, and they still have emotions, and they still have feelings. So every once in a while, if I know I haven't talked to my friend in a few days, I'm going to pick up the phone and call, no matter how busy I am. I'm going to step out of what I usually do and compromise. And I know that seems small and minute, but this is the same way on a larger scale. I'm going to, even though that may not necessarily be my thing, I'm going to compromise, and I'm going to call them, and I'm going to check in with them and make sure that we talk, so that they know the friendship is not one-sided. So I think it goes both ways. So even though, you know, you may not share the same love language in your friendships, and there could be a disconnect in reciprocating that energy, or you may feel like there's a disconnect, or something's being misinterpreted or just going on there. I do think that regardless of what your love language is, sometimes you are going to have to compromise and put in that effort to show your friend that, hey, I'm in this too. And I think that goes a long way. That goes a long way. So I think if I had to, my takeaway, because I said I was going to do a takeaway in all of this, because we have to leave on a positive note, I think the word would be intentionality. You know, I think that's the word. I think you have to be intentional with your friendships, in your friendships, and, you know, the same way that you would be in a romantic relationship. I think it comes down to just being intentional, communicating, and, you know, knowing your makeup and knowing your friends' makeup. You know, if you know that you forget, and you know that you have a lot going on and your schedule gets packed really quickly, if your friend has an event coming up or their birthday is coming up, you have to be responsible enough or just intentional enough about putting that on your calendar so that nothing can conflict with it because it's already on your calendar. You know, I think those are the type things that we can do to make sure we're not one of those people that I talked about a few minutes ago. So, and I know that that's just like a simple example, but I do think that it makes the friendship, number one, it makes the friendship better. And anytime people put energy or just participate fully in friendships, it makes us feel good. Like, we're not meant to do life alone, y'all. You know, we're meant to have friends. We're meant to do life with other people. So I think sometimes we have to take a minute and just reflect every once in a while to make sure we're doing our part and we're being good friends and we're in good friendships, lively friendships, and that we're getting things out of our friendships. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Shout out to all of my friends. I know they're listening in, but have a conversation with your friends. Call them. If you haven't talked to your friend in a while, and I know we've been in a pandemic, so we may not, I haven't been seeing my friends a lot, but you know, some of y'all been seeing y'all friends still, and, you know, I feel a way about that, but I'm not going to judge y'all. I think it's still important to just take this time and reach out to them, check in, make sure they're doing good. I don't care how you do it, if you have to get on the phone, FaceTime, do a Zoom call, I think this is just a real opportunity just to, you know, check in on your friendships, make sure everybody's going good, make sure everything is good, especially as we go into the new year. But yeah, that's kind of all I got for y'all today. Thank y'all for listening in every week. I am loving, you know, just sharing my thoughts with y'all, sharing my perspectives. It's been amazing. The feedback has been amazing. I love the fact that y'all have been tuning in like crazy. This has been an exciting journey, and I'm definitely looking forward to keeping this up. And with that being said, I will see you all next week.